Hey guys, here for another albums rankings. I like Avenged Sevenfold. That has never made me a cool person, but it is still true. This is probably the most difficult album rankings I am doing because a lot of their albums are really good and they're like really close to the same amount of good in my opinion. So it's difficult to rank them. One note, I'm ranking their major label albums. I have not listened to um, Waking the Fallen and Sounding the Seventh Trumpet. I first heard them when City of Evil came out. I'm not as big into constant screaming music, so it's not going to be on there. Just saying. So their five major studio albums are in order: City of Evil, the self-titled Nightmare, Hail to the King, and The Stage. That's what I am ranking. I'm probably going to be looking at the computer a little bit more this time to talk about individual songs and stuff like that. But the easiest choice for me in this band and possibly all the album rankings I'm ever going to do is Hail to the King being Avenged Sevenfold's worst major label album. It's it feels like maybe the reason they left that label is that they wanted them to be Metallica. I don't know. They changed their style so much between albums that it's hard to say whether it was them or the label's influence. But Hail to the King is a major disappointment compared to anything else I've ever heard from them. It's when I remember playing a song for my coworker who was big into Metallica, and he was like, "Are they supposed to sound like Metallica?" And I was like, "They're not really supposed to sound like Metallica." But there's not that many songs I would recommend off this album. I think "Hail to the King," the album, or sorry, the song is a great example of this album that it's missing that weirdness that is Avenged Sevenfold. It's just kind of like, I'm great. The only real song I enjoyed on this one was Shepherd of Fire. And I saw the music video and I was like, I feel dumb for liking this song, but Shepherd of Fire is pretty good. It's kind of catchy. This Means War is all right, and like honestly, I can't listen to this album the full way through. I'm just not that into it. It's kind of boring for an Avenged Sevenfold album. They're a band that can do all sorts of weird, crazy stuff, and this is like the least crazy thing they ever did. So Hail to the King, definitely their worst major label album. Number four, it's actually The Stage. I don't know if some people think The Stage is their worst album. I don't really know what people's opinions are on this, but their other albums are so freaking good that it's hard to say The Stage isn't a step down from that. But I have Stage on vinyl. I haven't listed it on vinyl yet because that thing back there doesn't necessarily work half the time. But um, when I heard about The Stage, I was yearning for Avenged Sevenfold that went back to its weirdness, and it was like a concept album about science fiction paranoias and artificial intelligence, and a really long song that has Neil deGrasse Tyson on it. Consider me in. This one I can listen to the whole way through. I haven't done it in a while, but there was definitely a time where I was just like listen to it a bunch of times in a row. But it's pretty good. It's better than the sales certainly have shown. But Stage is a good song. I think Exist is the really long 15-minute one that has some really catchy parts, and it's good. Goddamn is another song that some Avenged Sevenfold songs I don't necessarily like the way he's like singing. Goddamn is kind of one of them, but it's a good album. It's not one that has like as many standout tracks as some of their other things, but I could listen to it the whole way through. It's weird. It's definitely Avenged Sevenfold. It's modern Avenged Sevenfold, and some people might have difficulty dealing with that, but I think it's pretty good. This is where it starts to get difficult. For me, it's number three is City of Evil, the one that got me into the band. How does that work? Well, I will say the latter half of the album, um, I can listen to it like whole way through. There's definitely some songs that have similar themes about soldiers and warfare and how can it be possible for us to know we're on the right side and stuff like that. It has some really cool themes and actually some pretty catchy parts too. I remember singing part of one of it, and I don't remember if it's Straight to the World or Wicked End or Betrayed, or I have no idea. It was just in that suite of songs, I guess you could say, and was singing parts of it, and someone came to me where he's like, "That was really good. What was that?" I was like, "Oh, there's some catchy, beautiful shit going on in a Avenged Sevenfold album." But this is the one that got me into it. So "Seize the Day" is the song that got me into Avenged Sevenfold, the Guns N' Roses-ness of it. But Backcountry is obviously good. Beast in the Harlot is obviously good. I mean, this is a good album. They have said that they feel like they're a little immature about how they made songs at this time, and sometimes you can hear it. But if you like music that sounds like a death metal band playing Sonic the Hedgehog tracks, then this is the one for you. Number two, really difficult to choose this. I thought this was going to be my number one, and then going over it, it was kind of like, okay. But the self-titled is number two. Self-titled is the last one with full the Rev influence, and the Rev was a pretty important freaking part of their band when it comes to getting the weirdness of it and just some of the writing and stuff like that. If you look at the songs that have the Rev's credit on it, they're pretty important to them. On this album alone, the Rev is writing Almost Easy, Afterlife, Gunslinger, Scream, Unbound, Brompton Cocktail, Lost. He's the only writer on A Little Piece of Heaven, according to Wikipedia. Dear God, like he's all over the place on this album, and maybe that's why it's so strange and genre hopping and all this other crap. But like, he was pretty important, and there's a lot of songs on here that are just very all over the place. One of my favorite songs, I think, by Avenged Sevenfold ever is A Little Piece of Heaven, which is fucking weird. And I have said to somebody, like, that was a song that if you wanted to introduce Avenged Sevenfold to somebody, you should probably play them A Little Piece of Heaven, because if they're not super offended by it, they'll probably enjoy the ridiculousness of it. But other really good songs, I mean, Critical Acclaim is probably not my ideological voice, but it's pretty good. Almost Easy, like there's a bunch of good stuff on here. Not as good as the final album on the list, though. Number one is Nightmare. As I said, the Rev was really important to this band, and the emotion that came out of his death led to some very good music. He's also on this album too. He has credits for Welcome to the Family. He has Natural Born Killer. Tonight the World Dies, Fiction. The latter half of this album, when it gets into some of the sweets, talking about the loss of a loved one, is pretty. And I believe it's Fiction that has his vocals, and there's a certain point where there's a certain point where he stops singing, and Shadows is the only one singing, and it's like, oh God. Beyond that, there's some really good songs on this album, and this is the one that kind of like hit the number one single after number one single, or at least top five a bunch of times. Nightmare is really good. Welcome to the Family is really good. Dangerline is really good. Buried Alive is really good. So Far Away is good for complete different reasons, but this is a really good album top to bottom. I don't know a thing about drumming, but Portnoy from Dream Theater is on this, and it's just a good freaking album. Like, the loss of Rev was definitely a big deal, and you felt it even more when Hail to the King came out and sucked. But Nightmare is just barely my favorite Avenged Sevenfold album. But on top of that, let's talk about City of Evil, the self-titled album, and Nightmare. 3 in a row. That's a really freaking strong threesome.